Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left. Most importantly, honest, bold, and fueled by good whiskey. In Whiskey Veritas, we are Whiskey Congress. Join the evolution.
Whiskey Congress is back in session. Stephen and I are together in the Cleveland studio, recording a little later than usual, so we now talk about the things have happened, rather than what's going to happen, at least in the world of sports, and I guess in the world of politics too, because, well, we've talked about the election. Now Trump has started appointing people to various cabinet posts. I know it's not an official thing yet, because he's not in office yet, but he's already floating out some real buttes, and I think we have to get rid of them. But I forgot to mention that I am in the Cleveland studio with Stephen.
Hello.
Hello. What are you doing, man?
I'm, good.
All right.
I mean, we're just talking, and it just gets harder and harder to come in and talk about these topics. I think everything is so disjointed. Because of our 24-hour news cycle, where the media is just constantly just going to the next thing. There's not. Like, we try to do an in-depth analysis, but like there's just, and it feels like so much of what's being covered is not actually anything of substance, right? Like, everyone's looking for the headline, the attention grabber. No one reads articles, right? And it's discouraging. And then when you have a not serious person like Donald Trump, who is now the leader of the free world, again, putting more not serious people into positions that they have no business being assigned to or appointed to. I just am fearful of what this means for the stability of our democracy going forward, right? Now, conservatives will just like, we're cleaning out the swamp, and you would say that, right? Like, we need real people in these positions, and it's like, all right, you know what? And I'm literally at a point where it's, you know what? Go with it.
I feel kind of the same way. We talk all the time about me dealing with my buddies at the Irish pub and other bars, and when I say something that is factually obvious typically about Trump, and the response is, well, that's not true. I'm like, the whole John Kelly said that Trump called veterans losers and suckers. He never said that. His retired Marine general and longest serving chief of staff said that he said it. Well, he's bitter because he got fired. All right, that doesn't mean he didn't say it. I mean,
I can't even have those. Right, like, just hearing you talk about it makes me literally want to flip this table.
Well, please don't, because I have a glass of water right here and I'll get all wet.
But
it is maddening.
But which is why I can't engage with people on these topics. I literally don't do it anymore. Right? People bring it up, and I'm like, all right, cool, and then people get mad at me because I don't want to fucking argue with them about it. Right? Because it's just like everyone's a professional political analyst at this point. But I can't argue stupid.
No, I feel you.
Because here's my thing, right? Especially with that point right there. Trump said it, right? We know that he said it. Multiple people have verified that he said it. He's even said it out loud in some way, shape, or form where we've heard him, right? Make critical statements of people, even if it was just talking about his comments about John McCain, right?
Sure, yeah.
So,
that's recorded and played for us.
Exactly. So we've heard him make these statements. So for people to sit there and deny that he said it, right. And then the other thing about it is that his whole entire campaign in existence since 2015, maybe even going back to the whole birther thing with Obama, has literally just been gaslighting.
Yeah.
And that's another part where now it goes from just him to his entire campaign staff to now his administrative staff to his surrogates to just his average people on the street. That's all they do, and they know it, right? Like, they know things aren't true, but they say them anyway because it riles up the libs. We're just saying that to get you mad, right? Now, some of them are idiots and are true believers.
Let's not rule that out.
Like, some of them are just complete dolts and true believers, but then others know exactly what they're doing, right? And they revel in it because they believe that the system can be torn down and rebuilt in their image, and it's not going to harm them. It's only going to benefit them. And that's the part where when I say, all right, cool, then let's just do this your way, right? Because I feel like at the end of the day, if things work out the way they say they're going to work out, right, where the conservatives that voted for Trump that probably shouldn't have, right, like they think that they're going to be unscathed when all this goes to shit, right, there's a chance that could happen. But the reality is that we're all going to suffer because of the way that this guy and his team want to run the country. But the people who voted for him, a majority of them who will suffer, don't see it, refuse to see it. And even when they're in the midst of getting crushed by the boot of the Trump administration, they're still not going to acknowledge it, right? They're going to find a way to blame Biden, blame the Democrats, even though they're going to walk into the presidency, the House, the Senate, and a favorable Supreme Court. And it's going to be Trump and his administration that are shoving a flaming baseball bat up their ass. And then they're still going to look at us and blame us. But at least at that point, well, I mean, you get what you got. You know, you blame whoever you want, but the reality is it's the orange guy.
The one thing I keep hearing is when I say, here's what I'm concerned about, and I name all my concerns about destabilizing NATO, which would in turn destabilize Europe, which would in turn crush our economy potentially, and theirs. The response I always get is, well, he didn't do that the first time around. You should know better. Why would you do it the second time around? Here's why. Look at these appointments. Matt Gaetz being nominated for Attorney General, which I know infuriates you, and I know this because I said it. I called him Attorney General Gaetz the other day at your house, and you didn't take kindly to it.
I mean, it just like
it's gross.
It is now. People are just like, oh, because you've got Trump derangement syndrome, and you don't like Matt Gaetz because he's conservative, and you're a liberal, whatever. Look, one, calling me a liberal is probably not the way to go, right? Like, I mean, I think I've been open and honest on this show enough, right? I'm not registered as a Democrat or Republican. I've made it clear that I think that I'm not voting for Trump or any of his surrogates. So, I mean, if that then makes me a liberal, then okay, fine, whatever. But my issue with Matt Gaetz is, from a legal perspective, as someone who has gone to law school and taken the bar and done, a fair amount in the legal world, I understand what that position is. Matt Gaetz ain't qualified for it. I'm sorry.
He's never been.
He's never been a prosecutor.
Degree. He's never been a lawyer.
He's never been a prosecutor. He's never practiced. He's never. He has no actual real world experience in a role. Like he just like, and people think that that's good. They're like, oh, get somebody different in there. We've got again, with the whole draining of the swamp and, everyone should get a chance, right? Like, that's not what this is. Not everyone should get a chance. Not everyone is qualified to be in that role, right? Like, just because I really wanted to be an Apache pilot doesn't mean that I should just get to do it because someone gets in a position where they can appoint me to that role. Because you know what'll happen? I'll probably fucking blow the thing up before it ever gets off the ground. Right. And putting Matt Gaetz in that role is like putting me in the role of an Apache fucking helicopter and saying, go get him, Tiger.
I think I was going to use the analogy of a guy was a good high school football quarterback, so let's make him a head coach of an NFL team.
Sure. I mean, in that, right?
I think that's a reasonable comparison.
Jeff Saturday, you were a good player for the Colts. Now you're the head coach of the Colts, right?
But that was a different story, right? It was an interim thing, and he had been in the NFL for 12 years.
We're not talking about it. The point is, it was still a bad fucking idea.
Well,
right? And so, putting Matt Gaetz in this role, someone who has no understanding of what it is to even begin to be a prosecutor, right?
Right.
Never acted in that role in a courtroom. Not even sure he understands the weight of the decisions that he's going to make, not to mention that he has openly pledged his allegiance to Donald Trump, right? Like, so there's no objectivity in his role, in his position with him in it whatsoever, is incredibly dangerous as the head of the Department of Justice.
Agreed. Now, here's the difference. And I don't believe for a second he'll actually get there. Because he is so disliked amongst his colleagues, including his Republican colleagues, that they've got. It's an appointment that he's now right. They can do a recess appointment, I guess, and then he's there.
Let me explain. So you motherfuckers continue to just be like, oh well, there's the recess appointments, but the Supreme Court has flat out come out said we don't like them, but they are 100% constitutional, and there's not dick we're going to do about them. So this whole idea that he's not going to get in, he is absolutely getting in on a recess appointment. That's it. Game over, kids.
All right.
Like, you can't brush over that. Like,
well,
it's just...
I keep hearing that he's not going to get to that stage because it's going to come crumbling down around him.
What? What's going to come crumbling down?
The House investigation that, like, he's possibly going to... I know he didn't get charged by the DOJ the first time around. There was an House Ethics Committee hearing. He's resigned from the House. He is technically no longer a congressman. Mm-hmm. And the reason he did that, according to some, there's speculation here. We don't know exactly why, but it's reasonable to speculate that the House was about to release a report that was going to make him look pretty bad, a report involving bringing an underage girl over state lines who was 17 to have sex with him, and she testified to this. So it happened. Other people are in jail because of all this stuff.
Yep.
And...
but he stepped down. That report's not coming out. And Jim Jordan's going to make sure that it doesn't come out. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to come crumbling down. Well, and here's the deal. You think if that report comes out, that Trump's going to give a fuck and say, all right, never mind? Do you really think that?
No.
Like, I don't understand what the... what's going to come crumbling down that's going to stop him? Because he's not like, will he get confirmed? I don't think he'd get confirmed. But I don't think it matters because, again, he's going to end up getting appointment. He's going to get a recess appointment, and that's it.
I don't know the answer to the question. Has there ever been an attorney general put in place by recess appointment? I don't know.
It doesn't. You know what? Does it matter?
No, it does not because Trump
as long as you could point to a role that was an appointment that was where they were able to use a recess appointment to get a person in, like the Supreme Court's also not going to fight it.
Right.
Like, now, it wasn't even this court that made the statement that they didn't care, right? Because that goes back to Nixon, right? I forget the name of the court decision, but I've read it multiple times, and it was even before this. It actually came up when I was in law school, and I still remember it clearly, and actually I've gone back to it. But the point being is that the court then was just like, we don't love this, but really we can't stop it, right? And so that was then. Who on this court, right, from the majority, is going to flip and say, no, we don't like that? We'll
see. I mean, I don't expect the court to turn against Trump, but they're lifetime appointments. They've not always done exactly what he wanted. And by the way, if Clarence Thomas goes through with his promise, he's going to resign because now Trump will be able to appoint his replacement. So any chance of gaining any traction from the left on the Supreme Court is dead. Well, again, I'll be curious to see how this plays out. There's a ton of political drama. I mean,
you can go to Pete Hegseth.
Hegseth.
Or I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that. I'm literally looking at it. It says Hegseth. Clearly, that's my bad.
This time it's not my shitty writing.
No, it's not. I think because in my head I was saying, "Don't say Chris Helmsworth." And then I said Pete Hegseth. I don't know. Anyway, but, you go to Pete Hegseth, right? He's an Army major.
He was in the National Guard. So I looked at a bunch of research on him today. Okay. And he was in the Minnesota National Guard. Sorry, not Army Reserve. Minnesota National Guard. He was in charge of a platoon guarding Guantanamo Bay, claiming that the prisoners in Guantanamo were being treated well. He then deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq. I don't know in what role.
So what research did you do?
Well, he was a platoon leader. I don't know if he was in combat or in... Did you know he was in Guantanamo?
Yes.
Okay, well...
I was trying to tell you, and then you're like, I did all this research to tell me
all right,
you didn't know anything about his career.
You feel better.
Listen, the point is that my thing is his highest rank is a major.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Again, that's like saying, you know what? We got a guy who was the long snapper. We're gonna make him the head coach of the football team. Okay, like he wasn't in a role where he was making very vital key decisions, right, at the level that you need him to be, where you're going to be at the top of the fucking military.
Right.
Right? He hasn't even had the training. Like, in order to become a general, right? Like, there's so much training that you go to develop and understand the processes of decision making and making these life or death decisions, making these, freedom or enslaved for entire country regions. There's shit that you have to learn, right? And saying, well, we're going to take someone who doesn't have any of that experience, and then we're going to go ahead and rotate him up to the top to where he is then going to be telling people who outrank him by decades of experience, real world experience across the fucking world. Right?
For the past several years, his role has been Fox News contributor. Which is
just,
why he's where he is, because he's super loyal to Trump, he's super Christian nationalist,
and all that stuff. Yes, all that stuff is true, right? And I'm not. But what I'm saying is, like, that's you're putting these very inexperienced people in positions that they have never been in their life, right? Which, to be fair, most of the people that go into these positions have never been in these positions. But so that's maybe not the exact way to say it. But point being is, he's not prepared for it, right? And this isn't, well, he can rise to the occasion. This is, his inexperience is going to get people killed, right?
It's very scary, and I'm curious. To see.
I'm telling you, his inexperience is going to get people killed. People who signed up, people who, whether they're ROTC, whether they went to West Point, whether they just signed up because it was either military or jail, they're going to go into the military with this guy at the top of the fucking leadership, and they're going to die because of his inability, because he doesn't know, literally because he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
Well, what I'm going to be curious about is, will there be a rebellion amongst the top generals and existing senior military brass when they try to appoint this guy? And I don't think if...
What would that look like?
Well, there were times when multiple people said to Trump, like, if you do this, this entire branch of government, I think it was the Department of Justice, like the top 10 people at the Department of Justice said, if you fire Bill Barr, we will resign en masse, and you will have to deal with that. I think several high-ranking military officials will threaten to resign, and unlike in the past, I don't think that necessarily dissuades Trump.
It doesn't.
In fact, it might be exactly what he fucking wants.
That's what they want. They want these people, like, they want anyone they feel is not a yes man, they want them out. Right? And they're already throwing out, like, oh, well, if you supported woke policies or this or that or whatever, then we're going to come after you. You need to be fired, right? Like, Hegseth has got his whole commentary. He's written books about it, right? Like, the woke agenda and diversity is evil and it goes against the Christian national, all this other shit. Right? Like, so that's the guy that you're putting at the head of our national defense.
Yep.
All right. Cool.
Yep.
See how that goes for you.
So, Marco Rubio is likely to be nominated as Secretary of State. Now, he's been a longtime U.S. Senator. He's the guy who ran against Trump multiple times. Did he run the last time around? I don't think he did, just the first time.
No, here's my thing with Marco Rubio. Like, we all know his resume, right? No, he's probably the one that is actually probably qualified for the position.
There, yeah.
But he's, like, and as much as I hate this term thrown around, like, it actually fits him, he is such a fucking cuck. It is unbelievable. The amount of shit that Trump talked about him and Ted Cruz, right? Oh, little hands, Marco Rubio, right? And when Trump called him little hands...
No, he called Trump little hands.
I know, and Trump shot it right back to him. And when Trump shot it back to him, I watched it shake him on national television. He's like, like, it was like an awkward 2-minute thing where he couldn't fucking get a word out because he didn't know how to respond to it. Dude hasn't been the same since. And his just complete allegiance to Trump, right, in diehard loyalty under any and all circumstances, right, where even if he doesn't agree with something where he vehemently knows it's wrong, then the best he could do is just, well, I can't give you an answer, but I'm gonna give you this quote from the Bible. Right, that's the guy that we're going to put in so we're going to put a spineless cuck in the role of Secretary of State. Okay, Cool.
Well, and here's what I say about the three people we've talked about so far. With Gaetz and Hegseth, I think they believe the nonsense they're spewing. I think they're fucking psychos, but I think Gaetz actually believes what he says. I think Hegseth actually believes what he says. Like, kind of what you just said. Rubio knows better. He knows what's bullshit. He tried calling it out and got burned for it, and then he flipped over and
he did what he did. He did the slurping of Trump for this, right?
All right.
Maybe not. Maybe he wanted something a little bit more prestigious, right, or whatever. But either way, he wanted a high level role in a presidential cabinet, right? He sold his soul for this, and all right, you got it. Congratulations. Maybe he turns out to be something. I don't know. Right at this point, because again, I think he's just going to roll over for Trump no matter what.
Now, I think Secretary of Defense and Attorney General are much scarier to have.
Yeah, way more scary.
Because Secretary of State is a figurehead. And
he's a figurehead, so there's limited damage that he can do. But yet and still, like, all right, congratulations, Mario. Like, this is what you sold your soul for. You got it. Maybe you make something of yourself, and maybe you end up being a voice of reason within the administration. I don't believe that you will be. He tried to come out and make a power statement against wiping out Gaza and Hamas and blaming Hamas for all the innocent lives were taken. So they're going to go balls to the wall with Israel to wipe out, Hamas. That's kind of his strong statement coming in. But it's just. This is the type of shit that is just so disheartening, right? And then you've got Mike Huckabee, who has just been,
nominated for ambassador to Israel.
Right. I mean, and he's Israel. I mean, his support for Israel is kind of bizarre to me.
Well, it's an end times Christian thing.
Yeah, no, I know, but which is still fucking bizarre.
It's fucking terrifying, Steve.
Right? I mean,
I'm not dismissing your point at all. In fact, if anything, I think you undersold this one because Mike Huckabee said recently that there is no such thing as a Palestinian, and then he went back to whatever the biblical name of that land was, and like that's what's real. It's like, okay, Mike, you've always been kind of that scary but seemingly soft, nice guy type. He was the former governor of Arkansas. I think his daughter is currently governor of Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And when I saw him recently, it was just like I was watching a combination of his old self and the televangelist he's become. And now to put that guy in charge of that region,
have you seen the show that he has?
I saw this old show. Has he got a new one? Current one?
I don't know, but it's literally
it was televangelical.
No, but the name of the show is something about it's literally like a show that just praises Israel.
Okay, I'm sure.
It's just like I have YouTube TV, and I was like scrolling through, and I see it, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And it's just Mike Huckabee talking about how great Israel is and how we have to just endlessly, we have to literally sacrifice of ourselves to, as an individual. Even though I'm not Jewish, I should be doing something to support Israel, which I'm like, that is fucking bizarre.
Yeah, but again, it's the old, intensely Christian. This is the end times when Jesus comes back. This is where it's going to happen, and I'm going to be the guy to help get us there. And if that means the end of the world, which it may well mean.
Look, at this point, I just hope he's right, and I don't even care what side I'm on, right? Just be right.
I've never seen you this defeated.
I have a theory, though.
Okay.
I think Thanos is coming.
Aha! Now he's back, folks.
Because I saw this report that on January 25th, all the planets will be in alignment with the sun. All of them, right? So something like that happens. It's got to create some form of a gateway, right? Got to be.
Of course, yes.
So I'm assuming once everything is all in alignment, something is coming through the gateway. We're hoping that it's Thanos. And if he does, whoever might think that they're Tony Stark or whoever the fuck, just let him snap his fingers, guys. All right? Just let him snap his fingers and let this be done, right? And again, I don't care what half I'm on. If you turn me to dust, fine. If I got to stay and deal with the aftermath, great. Either way, just let him come through the gateway.
All right.
Now, that window is open for 14 days, right, where all the planets will be in alignment. So we've got a pretty good window for something to creep through there. So let's just keep our eye on it. January 25th until 14 days after. Expect some weird shit to happen.
The funny thing is, I know you're kidding.
Well,
I
the
think
gateway
you're kidding.
thing is actually
Okay, that's
legitimate.
real.
The planets are actually going to be in alignment for 14 days starting on January 25th, and we will be able to see like at least I think 3 or 4 of the planets all just with the naked eye. And then if you've got a telescope, you'll probably be able to see most of them. The only one you won't be able to see is Pluto, but I guess Pluto's technically not a planet anymore, so whatever.
All right.
But that part is real. The gateway part, I believe, is real, but
I've heard enough people talk about end of times things, and remember when the rapture was going to happen like 7-8 years ago, and there were people putting empty clothes out on their front lawn and pretending that they were raptured away. I know you're kidding to a degree. I'm not sure to what degree I believe right now.
Kidding about what?
That Thanos is actually coming.
Oh, I don't know.
I know. I'm joking with you.
What I'm saying is, I know that the planets are going to be in line. I'm actually hoping for it.
I can tell.
Right? I'm actually hoping that once all these planets go into alignment, then like Stonehenge is going to light up and shoot a laser beam into the sky. Some sort of gateway is going to open up, and then all of this won't matter.
Your knowledge of the Marvel Universe will make you perhaps the ambassador for Earth. So
I don't need to be the ambassador for anything. All I'm saying is, like, if they're threatening to take us out, just let it happen.
Tony Stark will never let that happen, Steve. Last one I want to talk about is Tulsi Gabbard. Talk about people who have completely just flipped. I was a big Tulsi Gabbard fan for a long time.
See, now here's the thing. I don't think she's flipped. I think this is who and what she's been the whole time, which I tried to fucking tell you, and I got made to be an asshole and a hater.
That's not why. Well, before the planets align, Biden is now authorizing long-range missiles to be used by Ukraine to be fired into Russian territory. Russia's responded with a very unhappy, has a very unhappy response to that. We talked a long time ago, and I remember saying as clearly as I could that World War II didn't have a start like starting off a football game or a race. No one fires a gun in the air and says World War III is here. We've now got North Korean troops being sent to Ukraine to fight with Russia in Ukraine's sovereign territory. We now have U.S. missiles being authorized to be fired into Russian territory. Israel and Gaza are still on fire, and now we've got an end timer saying that he needs to make sure Israel wins, and most of the rest of the Middle East is trying to jump into that fight, or at least threatening to jump into that fight. So we might not be around for Thanos. That's probably a little dramatic, but you get my point.
Okay.
Seriously, Steve.
When
when are you officially in a world war? When you've got major superpowers doing a bunch of shit, entangled in multiple continents.
This ain't it.
Well, North Korea is now. You read me a big thing about what North Korea is doing. So they're saber rattling, which they've been doing for fucking decades.
Let's not North Korea aside. The only point about North Korea that matters of the thing that I read you, and what you just said is that they're sending they've got troops on the ground in Russia and Ukraine.
Yes.
That actually, in terms of your point of when is World War III, now, what I'm going to tell you is we're not in World War III yet. And we're not there. When we get involved, then we're in World War III. When we're actually, do you feel threatened? Do you actually feel? And the answer is no. You know why? You wake up every day, you do your stuff, right? You're waiting on a call from Niels, right? I go and I do my thing about work, right? Like, we're going on every day. Do you feel like you're in the midst of a world war right now?
No, I don't. And
because
you know what?
I feel like now the one thing is, now this is an actual conversation that I've had with people who lived in that time, right? When they were once we got involved in World War II. The people who were young teenagers
right.
in their early college years, they said you felt like at any point in time, no, it was different because they had the draft and you didn't know when you can get called and everything else, but it was a different feel to it. It was all hands on deck, right? There was a fear of being attacked, a fear of being sent out, a fear of what was going to happen next. Like there was this
right.
a different feel. I don't
Well, and other things that were happening were pretty awful, right? The internment camps for Japanese people. Like, okay,
Yes.
these people are aligned with the bad people. We're shoving you into this. We didn't call it a concentration camp, but
Right. I mean, like, when all of a sudden all the military people around me all start like, well, I'm shipping out in X amount of time. I'm shipping. We're all, you know what I mean? And half my gym is empty. Then, like, all right, things shift for me a little bit, right? Because when we get to the point when we've got like us being involved in something doesn't mean anything, because what the fuck are we not involved in at any given time across the world, right? So you can't say that, oh, we're involved, right? Like, well, we are, but we're sending weapons and we're fixing, like when we've got troops on the ground, right, in Europe, then, okay, you're in a world war. We don't have troops on the ground. We got people over there fixing stuff, right? But we're not fully engaged in that war. Once we get fully engaged...
Well, then it's over. I mean, then it's on, I should say.
Right.
Then it's actually happening.
Because that's, I think, once we get troops on the ground and engaged, then I think that's when the discussion starts. Now, to your point, I think that we've got an event, we've got multiple things that are all flowing towards each other that are going to come to a confluence point where you'll say, all right, well, I don't know officially when this happened, but it's happening. It's here.
And that's kind of where I'm trying to go with it.
But I don't think we're there yet. And I think, though, when you've got a dipshit like Pete Hegseth in charge of your Secretary of Defense, well, you'll probably get there a hell of a lot closer than you would have otherwise.
And I will not stop talking about how the old end times Christian end of the world stuff is driving folks like him and Huckabee, because especially Hegseth is going to be in a position to actually influence those things.
Now, the one thing I will say, Hegseth, whoever his tattoo artist is phenomenal. Now, his tattoos...
little scary.
Are questionable. Now, I got into this a little bit because they're like, well, he's a white nationalist because of those tattoos. Well, slow down, right? He's got a lot of Knights Templar tattoos, right, which a lot of your white nationalist groups have adopted Knights Templar theology as like a rallying cry. But wanting to heavily associate with Knights Templar does not necessarily make you a white nationalist, even though many of your white nationalist groups are associated with the Knights Templar, if that makes sense. Now, my point is that I think we need to get, like, part of why Democrats lost the election is because of the name calling to a degree, right, for lack of a better term, right, where we're just like, you don't agree with me, so you are a racist, white nationalist, fascist, whatever, right? And so I think there needs to be, you need to dial back on that because it was used so much, and conservatives, like, you get to a point where you get called it so many times, like, and I know plenty of people that aren't racist, but get called racist because of whatever, and they're just like, I just don't care, right? Now, so I think that, like, dial that shit back, but my point is that if you want to say that, like, Pete Hegseth needs to be questioned about his tattoos, about his association with some of these groups that heavily associate themselves with the Knight Templar that have white nationalist connections, and he needs to be backed into a corner where he disavows openly and directly white nationalism and doesn't try to redirect around it, I support that all day because I don't know who and what he is when it comes to that. Right, if it's just strong religious beliefs. But then when you've got that guy who has written books about how he despises the concept of diversity being our strength, and then he's got these tattoos that there are white nationalist groups that associate with them, then there's plenty of context clues there, right? There's plenty of circumstance where it's worth the questioning, but we just got to be careful just flat labeling the guy just because.
I call him a Christian nationalist, and I think he's called himself that.
Yeah, which is fine. But what I'm saying, I wasn't saying you.
Okay,
I was just saying that there are people who are calling him a white nationalist, and that was the argument that I was in. And I'm like, look, there's plenty of connections to white nationalism and the Knight Templar, but that doesn't automatically make him a white nationalist. But it's worth the questioning,
Right.
and he needs to be forced to answer the question directly. And if he can't, then I think that should be a fucking automatic disqualifier.
Well, to your point earlier, though, insane times it absolutely would be. Now he might just say, "What of it? I got Don's got my back." I mean, I'm not trying to be ultra fatalistic.
He could, right?
It would not shock me. I don't. You.
And honestly, that would almost be refreshing. Like, well, at least now we know.
The old Dave Chappelle shit, like in the South, racism is right out there. It's right in your face. It's not this fake shit you see in the North where they pretend to be progressive. Chappelle did it better. Anyway, the whole Korean Peninsula is scary to me. Everything going on in Europe and in the
like, it's all there.
Yeah,
it all lines up.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that like there's nothing to worry about.
There's a tipping point, and that's
right. I just don't think we're there in terms of the tipping point. Are we close? Sure, absolutely.
Well, once the top stops spinning, it's over.
It all falls down.
Yep. You got something on here about the Russian economy. I can't imagine it's in good shape. It wasn't in great shape prior to a 2.5-year war, or however long it's been. I mean, they've been losing people. One thing that's is being talked about a lot is these North Korean troops that are being sent to the front lines. Will they defect? Because they're not in North Korea anymore. I mean, they basically could decide if they want to get shot with a Ukrainian bullet or a Russian bullet. But
have there been North Korean defections?
I've read stories saying it's happening and they're kind of hiding in areas and that they're very disillusioned. But I'm stereotyping and maybe projecting a little bit here.
So wait, has it happened or not?
There have been some. I don't know what the numbers are, but I've read multiple stories about it, and some of them apparently are higher-ranking folks. But if you've lived your entire life under the thumb of a glorious leader who you believe is descendant of a god, that fucks with your head. Even if you're now, you've gone through military training, you've probably got some education, but if you have been raised with that as your standard, it's tough to shake. But we'll see what happens. I mean, this is again a very volatile situation, and Trump's election is only making it worse.
Again, I'm not sure why me talking about the Russian economy brought North Korea into it, but just some of the things that they're dealing with, right? Remember, it's Russia, so we have to deal with kilograms. But a kilogram of potatoes in Russia in November of 24 is 73% more expensive than it was in January of 24. Interest rates increased 21% in October in Russia. Mortgage rates have risen 28%. So their economy is collapsing.
Mass inflation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just ridiculous mass inflation. And then their railway system is completely collapsed, because it's from, it's even older than the American railway system, and it has not been well maintained. They've fired basically everyone who deals with the railway transportation. Now, look, it's funny because, just last year we had
Tucker Carlson over there.
Well, no, I was saying all the train derailments we were dealing with over here. So we're in terms of old railway systems, we're seeing some issues that are somewhat similar, although theirs are so bad because they've got a war machine going, right? So they're constantly trying to get supplies from one place to another place, and they can't do it because the rail system is so bad that they are literally having to take things that would be best carried by train by truck. So they take one rail car off, put it on the bed of a truck, the most important one, and they send it because it's got a better chance of getting there on a truck on the roads than it does over the rails, which, if you think about it, is insane, right?
Right. Well, and also with modern warfare, both trains and trucks are going to be such easy targets for drones. And I was watching videos of Ukrainians just blowing up Russian convoys. I think they got the number 34 trucks goes into my head, but a whole convoy was just a sitting duck for Ukrainian missiles, and that's going to keep happening.
Here's the question I've had for a little bit, right? That's a little bit broader than what we're speaking of. China, Russia, North Korea, we talk about their, big militaries, and they've got so many people. Like, you can't deny the advantage that they have in the way of numbers.
Right.
But you do have to wonder about their actual effectiveness in terms of fighting. because they haven't done it.
True.
Right? And I think you're seeing that to a degree with the Russians, where the only reason they're actually, this war is still going on, right? Like, so now there's no world that this happens where Russia was smaller and invading Ukraine, but let's just say they were, right? Or they were it was a level playing field in terms of numbers, this war would probably be over and Ukraine would have won and be done. Right, like
Russia
because
will throw bodies at
right, like, and that's what they're doing. They're literally just throwing bodies at it, and they're not getting more effective fighters, right?
Right.
Because you're just pulling more and more inexperienced people off with no time to train them, and so you're just sending wave after wave after wave of people. So you have to wonder at what point in time do you even run out of those, and then. And then you get Russian fighters that are just like, fuck this, you're not sending me over there to die. And they either defect or just say, fuck
rebel.
it. Right, rebel. And just like, all right, fuck it, we're going the other way. We're going towards the Kremlin. And
of course, the last guy who did that, things didn't go great. Prigozhin is home.
Well, Prigozhin fucked himself. Like, if you're going to do that, you got to go all the way with it. He stopped and then tried to be buddy-buddy. Yeah. And then...
Yeah.
Then him and his boys decided to blow up a plane with grenades on a plane or whatever.
That was the official story, yeah. Yeah, well, but, this goes back to
so wild.
Yeah,
they were playing with grenades on the plane and it blew up. Like
our intelligence was able to gather that, how, and they
called from, they were FaceTiming me while they were playing with a grenade and I saw it blow up. It's crazy. It's a shame.
But, this is sort of in the same vein with Prigozhin that we talk about so many things. When you do something that dramatic and you do it half-assed, bad shit happens.
Put
the whole ass in there.
You got to put your whole ass, if you're going to overthrow a country, you cannot half-ass it. You got to put your whole ass into it, otherwise it's going to be problematic.
Do you know who of course you know who Danny McBride is. I'm sorry for asking. Sorry. Danny McBride is a very funny actor. He told a story on a podcast once where he was trying to stand up for this hot chick that had an abusive, steroid-bound boyfriend, and he takes a swing at the guy with a golf club, and but he doesn't want to club him in the head. So he whacks him across the knee, the club breaks, and then he's standing there with a broken golf club going, come on, can we talk this out? And it did not go well. But I think that's an equivalent.
That's literally, right? Like, I mean, you got to go all in berserker at that point. But, all right. Yeah, so my point is, though, with Russia, things are getting worse for Russia's economy the longer that this goes. I think it's going worse for their actual war fighters the longer this goes because it is literally a war of attrition at this point. And the more that Ukraine is able to use, American weapons on, Russian land or on Russia's side of the fence, and the more effective that Ukraine is able to be just with their weapons in general in terms of how they use them. I think that makes it. I think this makes the situation over there even worse because it's only because Ukraine. I don't think Ukraine has what they need to just plow into Russia, right, and just take the Kremlin. So now I think it just makes it even worse. It goes even longer, and then it has even more of a negative impact on the Russian people. And maybe that's what you need to get them to basically turn on Putin and get him out of there. But then I think it's just. Because I don't think there's any good end to this, right? No. I think it just ends with that whole Soviet region being a complete, everyone for themselves. Everyone for themselves sort of deal where we also released the fucking Lord of War back over there, so I'm sure he's back up and running at full capacity.
Victor Bout.
Yeah. Actually, I know for a fact that he is.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was going to drift off to obscurity because he's 20 years in prison.
No, he just pulled off a relatively large transaction.
Can you reveal your source?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so. Well, I mean, and there's a bunch of trickle down that comes with that too, in the sense that when your economy's blowing up and the people you're relying on to do resupplies and work in factories and do this, but their housing prices went through the roof and they can't afford it. I mean, the entire country collapses.
Food.
Right. And, all right. Let's talk about just people beating each other up. So I want to talk a little bit about our experience watching the fight on Friday.
I don't.
Well, it was, I mean...
Here's the deal. I don't want to get into details about where we were, what we did, who we were with, all that other stuff. But I do want to talk about the actual experience on Netflix, which most people know about. But Netflix had some serious server issues, lots of buffering. Like we missed the entire Taylor Serrano fight, which is really the fight that I wanted to see the most. You were less interested in that fight, but
right.
I really...
But I heard it was a great fight.
And it's just like... Because as a boxing fan, like, okay, yeah, it's two women, but both these women are really good fighters.
I just don't want to see one get punched in the face. I just don't.
Okay, fine. But you lose because everybody else wanted to see it. And it was a great fight that we miss out on because Netflix didn't do their fucking job.
Right.
Right? Like, how do you not have the server capacity and bandwidth to do this? Like, the whole point of bringing this was that you thought it was going to bring you more people, right? And it's live, but I think part of their problem is that they don't do live, right?
Right.
Like, so it's something that they didn't have to worry about. And then it's just like, oh, wait, this is actually kind of a big deal. So the question then becomes for Netflix, they've got the Steelers and the Chiefs on Christmas Day. Can they get this resolved in a month?
That's a good question. I didn't think about that aspect. I forgot that they were carrying the game. This could be them overstepping their bounds. Netflix has been an amazing company. Netflix cost me a shitload of money because I used to invest in Blockbuster. And when Netflix came around, they just wiped Blockbuster out, and I won't even go through my whole experience with that. But they've had their ups and downs as a stock. I'll be curious to see how their stock responds to this because so many people, like we were literally watching 25% spinning around on my TV until we bailed. We missed the women's fight. We did get to see, was it Ramos and Barrios, the fight
before it, yeah.
That was a hell of a fight.
Bro.
And then, Mike just,
But it makes sense what happened, right? Like, people really weren't tuning in.
Right.
So we were able to see that fight, no problem. And then I think a lot of people wanted to see the Taylor Serrano fight, and that is when the issues started. Because it was right after the Barrios fight that we basically started having issues, and then it just went to shit. And then even at the venue where we went to go see it, we were able to watch it, but there were issues like you were looking at one TV and then going to the other TV because this one was buffering. It just wasn't a pleasant overall experience, aside from the fact that the Tyson-Paul fight wasn't overly entertaining. Tyson loses. Now, the silver lining is at the end of the day, Tyson's 58 years old, fighting a guy that's more than half his age, right? Jake Paul is, I think, 27 or 28 years old. Mike Tyson is 58 years old. There's 30 years between them. And Mike Tyson, doesn't get injured, finishes the fight. It ends up being a decision, unanimous decision going to Jake Paul. And I don't think there's anyone that disagrees with it whatsoever. No. Mike just didn't throw any. I mean, Mike literally wasn't throwing punches. Now, I was talking to Whiskey Ben, and he was like, oh, well, I think he was favoring his knee. I don't think he was favoring his knee. I just think that Mike recognized that he just didn't have the reaction time that he used to. He knew that if he threw a counter punch, that it probably wasn't going to land because it wasn't going to come as fast as it needed to. He knew he was going to leave himself exposed. So as opposed to leaving himself exposed, he just took a few shots if and when he could, and then the whole thing was just survive till the end.
Right.
And then see where it happens. And hopefully one of the shots that he did throw maybe caused enough damage to where it would knock him down, knock him out, or whatever. He didn't catch him with any, so it's like, all right, well, I survived, and that's that.
And I hate to say good things about Jake Paul, but he was smart. He didn't get sucked into a macho contest, and that's the way Tyson would have beaten him. If they would have stood toe-to-toe and just thrown haymakers, maybe it ends in the first round with a classic Tyson shot. Paul was smart. He fought. Backpedaling was largely in the middle of the ring. Landed some shots. He really never hurt Mike. Never had him at risk of getting knocked out. But at the end, I think he was pretty gassed, and he realized I can't just chase this guy down like I used to. And I'm sure it's the end of Mike Tyson's boxing career. They both got big paydays, which is what neither is upset about.
Which I mean, I'm not going to put too much on that, right? I mean, like Tyson has made plenty of money, even after having some rough money days. After he got out of jail and lost and everything else. But I mean, he's got into cannabis and some other things. But like this, make sure this. I'm sure this sets him and his family up for good.
He also got hangover money.
Right. Well, yeah. No. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, he's and I don't want to go through his entire, accounting, but point is that, like, it was a payday for him, but I think Mike has enough respect for it which is why I think he took the route that he took. He's like, look, I'm not going to, I'm not going to go out there and just swing wildly and put myself in a position to get fucking knocked out. Like, that's not going to be how my legacy ends.
Right.
Right. But if it's, if there's anything to take from it, right? Because, like, look, Mike was in bad shape, which is why the fight didn't happen when it was originally supposed to back in, what was it, May?
I don't remember. It was several months ago, yeah.
Because he had, like, an ulcer or something like that and was dealing with blood clots. And so he had to come back from that. And then now to be able to get into a ring with a guy literally half his age, survive, not take any damage, didn't throw nearly as many punches as you would want, but to be able to walk away from it clean and basically hand the sport off to, whoever, even if it's Jake Paul. And the thing with Jake Paul is, the guy's built a career on being a heel. The guy's built a name for himself on being someone that's unlikable. You see it a lot. You see a lot of people his age from this generation that think that that's the only way that they can get ahead. The comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, who's around my age but a little bit younger, right? Like, that's how he finally figured out, like, I'm gonna break through, right? Tried to be kind of an edgy comic and realized
master or whatever,
but then had to take it that next step to really rise to that next level, and that's what got him on, got him in front of Rogan, and now he's doing shit for Trump, who's now the fucking next president of the United States. So there's a lot of guys who have taken this path of, I'm just going to be the ultimate gaslighting heel, right, until I basically become a superstar. And that's where it's at. Now, I will say, I think Jake Paul has kind of come around. I think he's matured. Dude has built an empire, he and his brother. I think he's still got plenty of that heel in him, but it has leveled out some. They've made some really smart moves with how they promote boxing, how they get other boxers involved. Because, listen, that Taylor Serrano fight made a lot of fucking money for those girls, too, right? And that's because of Jake Paul. Jake Paul was the one who said, I'm going to put this fight in front of ours, and I'm going to put some money in you girls' pockets. Like, and he created a place for them to train in Puerto Rico, right? Like, so I think he's done a lot of good things. And I don't like, he's 27. He's a kid in my eyes, right? Half my age, even more so.
Literally half my age.
Right? And so I don't like talking down about younger kids like that, because I think that there's something to be said for the maturing process. And I think he's going to carry some of this heel with him for an extended period of time. But I will say that he has done the work to become a better boxer. Right?
Yeah, that's undeniable.
He's done the work to become a better boxer, and he's doing the work to help the sport. Whether you don't have to like him, but if you look at what, like, in boxing, if you go back, and people are like, oh, he made a spectacle of it. What the fuck do you think boxing was? What the fuck do you think the Rumble in the Jungle was?
Right.
Right? What the Madison Square Garden, Las Vegas, right? Like, yes. Like, prize fighting. It's prize fighting. It is a spectacle. It's watching two humans beat each other around a crowd of people, right? Like, what do you want this to be? Like some sort of fucking back alley fight in Malaysia? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, yes, he made a spectacle of it, and that's what boxing is. And if you want to bring it back to what I was used to as a kid and what you were seeing as a teenager, right? The spectacle part is a big part of it, but then you also have to have good fighters that put on good fights.
And realistically, most fighters don't. I mean, this is fight number 12, I think, for Jake Paul, 11 or 12. And most fighters on their way up fight 11 or 12 or more fights against people who are handpicked to make sure they build up a record. I mean, Mike Tyson, in his career before he fought Trevor Burbick, was 22-0, I think, or somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, he had fought some guys that had no chance. The thing I will say, again, to Paul's credit, is he's really good at that heel roll, to the point where I thought, when I was talking to younger people, that they would be like, I'm a big Paul fan, and I was expecting there to be a bunch of old guy jokes and old guy whatever, and they were like, "This kid's such a punk. I want to see Mike Tyson knock him out." I'm talking about girls in their 20s saying that.
Yeah.
And so, which again, I guess you can say that to his credit, he's trying to play a role, and he did it well. Did you watch the John Jones Stipe Miocic fight?
I did.
I did not. I know what happened. Stipe is a Cleveland guy, so are Jake and Logan Paul. Stipe is an incredibly likable guy. I'm a John Jones fan to a degree, just as a Western New York guy. I know you're not a John Jones fan, but go ahead and give your...
My issue with John Jones is just that John Jones is a brat, okay? Yeah. He's the youngest of 3 brothers or 4 brothers.
I think 2 in the NFL.
Right, and he's got his 2 older brothers both played in the NFL. They were both really good. Right, like John Jones isn't exactly the guy who was, fighting to feed his family. Right now, okay. I'm not holding that against him, but what we see is that brattiness of not having to, what did he really actually struggle with? Right, because given the age difference, I'm saying his actual he grew up relatively comfortable because by the time the older one was in the NFL, I think he was in his early teens, maybe not even yet.
Okay.
Right? And then, the other brother, so he has whatever, but it's just his lack of accountability is what I can't fucking stand. Right? And it's the thing that I hated the direction that Mike Tyson's career went. Right? Where now Mike Tyson's was just like, holy shit, I'm super famous and I'm super rich. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. There's no rules. John Jones is just I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want because who's going to stop me? I'm a really good fighter and my older brothers are in the NFL right. And I've got a lot of money no matter what. And so that's the part that I don't like. His skill in the fucking octagon is undeniable. The dude is just and I told people, I'm like, look, I love Stipe. Stipe is a great guy. I've met him on more than one occasion. he's a firefighter. How could you hate that? Humble guy, has always done the right thing. There's never been a controversy about Stipe. The most controversial thing is that Dana White refused to pay him, right, a decent amount of money because he was so just humble and sort of,
right.
I'm going to go do my job. I'm going to go back to firefighting and training to fight, right? And it drove Dana White nuts because he wanted, give me something,
He wanted
right?
the heel. He wanted
right? And Stipe never bought into it, so Dana went full into John Jones, which is not the wrong decision. And when they got in the octagon, you saw why.
Yeah.
Right? John Jones was just faster and literally more lethal. Right? The kick that took out Stipe, it hurt me when I saw it in real time because he literally whipped around and he got him with a heel right in the liver. And Stipe, you saw Stipe just went down. And as he's going down, he's exposed, but you could see he literally can't do anything. And then John, boom, boom. And then Stipe I won't say he was out before he hit the ground, but he was right. I mean, he couldn't, and the fight was over. As soon as he kicked him, the fight was over, but then he finished it off, and that was it. And that's John Bones Jones. Him as a fighter, I'm not going to take anything away from him. He is one of the greatest that you'll ever see in any type of fighting, right?
There's really no argument against that. He's a phenomenal all-time great fighter, undeniably the best heavyweight MMA fighter ever, and there's really not even an argument that I can think of. All right, man, let's talk some football. Big weekend for football for both of us, both of our teams. The Bills beat the Chiefs in a very exciting game. Josh Allen put on the Superman cape and scored a 27-yard touchdown run inside of a minute and a half. And it was just, I'm there watching the game, pins and needles, 4th and 2. I thought they were lining up to try to draw Kansas City off. When he lined up in the shotgun, I'm like, if you're trying to draw him off, you get under center and you try to do I'm about to jump through the line like I always do. When he lined up in the gun, I was like, oh boy. And there was a little swing pass in the open that was swing pass to the side that looked like it might have gotten covered. And he just takes off, barrels into the end zone, and the Bills defeat the Chiefs, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, so just around the NFL, you had a few really big games, right? Obviously the Bills and the Chiefs was a big one, and I think really for me, the Bills are the team to beat in the AFC. I know that the Chiefs were undefeated, but the Chiefs were just struggling so bad on their offense. Now, the way things went last year, their offense kind of took off around this time, and I think it did sort of pick up a little bit. But I think there are some issues there within the Chiefs. Some of it is related to injury and inconsistency, especially at the wide receiver position. And the Chiefs are going to be in it no matter what, right? Defending Super Bowl champs. They still have Pat Mahomes. They still got Andy Reid.
Chris Jones is a fucking monster.
They've got Steve Spagnuolo as the defensive coordinator. So they haven't been dethroned. But if you said, who's the team that scares you the most in the AFC? For me, as a Steeler fan, it's Buffalo. Now, we play the Chiefs, and I think that's a tough game for us. It'll be a short week coming for us. It is at home, but it's on Christmas Day, which we just talked about. And I don't think the Steelers really match up against either, mostly because at the end of the day, both teams have a quarterback that is very much better than us. But the Steelers came out this week, played against the Ravens, who had the best offense in the league. You've got Derrick Henry, you've got Lamar Jackson, you've got their Flowers has really come on as a receiver. You've got Likely, you've got the other tight end, Mark Andrews. But the Steelers came out and they basically shut them down. But that's what the Steelers do against the Ravens. Like, the Steelers take that game very seriously in terms of game planning, in terms of intensity. The Steelers beating the Ravens is not that big of a surprise if you're looking historically. And even this year, with as good as the Steelers' defense was playing, you weren't going to be surprised that they did what they did, right? Like, the Steelers' defense came in and did what they've been doing most of the season. But I really think if you said, who do I think the top 5 teams in the AFC are, I would put the Bills at the top. I would put Kansas City in that third spot. I would put Kansas City in that second spot. I would put Baltimore in that third position. And then I think it is then a toss-up between Pittsburgh and the Chargers.
I was just going to say Los Angeles, but I would go with my fifth spot.
It's hard for me as a Steeler fan that watches the game closely to put the Steelers in the top 5 like that. But now it's at a point where even as a fan that's very critical of the team, that I have to acknowledge that, all right, yeah, they're pretty good. Now, the issue is that my biggest issue is that Russell Wilson can't run anymore. He literally cannot run. There were multiple times where he thought about it and then he realized he just had to throw it away because there was 4 yards for him to get a first down. It was wide open grass, and he's like, my short little slow old legs are not going to get me there. Let me just throw this ball away. And that's where you miss Justin Fields. So at some point, how much do you bring in Justin Fields to counter the fact that Russell Wilson can't run? If you want to make you would have never taken Ben Roethlisberger off the field, but as good as Russell Wilson has been, he's never been as good as Ben Roethlisberger has been. So then the question is, is there a world where you can combine those two to really have basically your version of Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, that level of a quarterback? And
in the aggregate, you're saying.
Right.
One guy who can run. I mean, Justin Fields is a solid passing quarterback, but he's a fantastic runner.
Right. But his ability to throw is what makes it where teams want to come in and say, all right, just focus on Justin Fields running. And then because they may bring this in more where they bring Justin Fields in the red zone. So at the end of the game yesterday, they brought, we needed to kind of, we got the ball back. So we were up 18-12, right? Yes, we were up 18-12. Oh, so no, we were up 18-10.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so then Baltimore scores a touchdown. They need a 2-point conversion. We stop them. But there's a minute left on the clock. So then they kick the ball to us. We need to get a first down so we can ice the game because they've now used two of their timeouts, right? And so, or 2 or 3, either way, we needed to get a first down. They bring in Justin Fields. He gets us 9 yards on a scramble, and then they give the ball to Najee. He gets the first down, game over. I think what happens moving forward is that they bring in Justin Fields in these sort of situations where you need multiple options, right? And you lean heavily towards him running, but he does have the threat of passing, and he can be a really effective passer. But you just have to figure how to do that without fucking up the rhythm of the game for a Russell Wilson. Because what Russell Wilson has been able to do is to show you that, look, with competent quarterback play where you've got a quarterback who can find the open receiver, this team can be really dangerous. And we made a move to go get Mike Williams, which paid off last week against the Commanders, but we didn't even throw him the ball this week. Right? My argument was we didn't need another receiver. We just needed to be able, for the quarterback to be able to throw it to the open receivers that we have right now. Right, and that's kind of what Russell Wilson and, to a degree, Justin Fields have done to this point, but Russell Wilson more so. So that's where we see it. Other game, big game, was the Chargers and the Bengals.
That was a wild game.
Right? Chargers go out, get a big fucking lead in the first half. Right? Then Joe Burrow does what Joe Burrow does and just says, all right, I'm just going to start throwing at Jamar Chase and T. Higgins exclusively. Brings them back into the game, and then J.K. Dobbins basically seals it with a run late. And J.K. Dobbins is the guy I'm happy for. Basically ends up leaving Baltimore because he had suffered multiple injuries for them and barely ever played. And he was just like, look, I still got it. You guys should pay me. And Baltimore's like, you haven't played for us in 2 years. You've been injured. We love you, but see you later. So he goes from one Harbaugh to the other. Right? Jim's just like, well, I saw you at Ohio State, and I don't know what my brother's problem is, but I'm going to take you. And they literally put it on his back from a running back standpoint, and he's been phenomenal.
Yeah, that run to close, it was great. So I had gambling interest in that game, and the funny thing was, I needed all these things to happen in terms of individual performances. I needed 2 touchdown passes from each quarterback. I needed the game to go over 48 points, and I needed the Chargers to win. And I had everything lined up, and at the very end, Cincinnati's got the ball. It's a tie game, and I'm like, I had put the Chargers winning was in the bag in my mind. I think it was 24-6 at the half, and next thing I know, it's 27-27 under 2 minutes, and the Bengals have the ball, and that was the one thing that was going to fuck me. And then the ball changed possession a couple times, and like I said, Dobbins closed it out in glorious fashion, and the Bengals are done. What's the record? 4-7?
I think they're 4-6. So the Bengals are 4-6. They're not out of it yet, but I mean,
there's a long road back.
Right. Like, I mean, they still have some hefty games on their schedule left. And they're, obviously they're behind. Like, the Steelers are leading the AFC North at 8-2. The Ravens are 7-4.
3, I think. They're. Oh, they have an extra game money.
Yeah, I think they're 7-4, and then then it's the Bengals coming in at 4-6, and then the Browns at the bottom of the division. So yeah, I mean it's definitely an uphill climb, but it's not out of the picture for them.
They're in that dreaded in the hunt category though. Right. At the bottom.
I mean, look, if they can beat us, they would need to sweep us. I think they got swept by Baltimore. I think they've got another game with Cleveland. Basically, the Bengals need to win out. They may be able to afford to drop one more game.
Exactly.
But then so I definitely won't look. They got Joe Burrow's playing the best he's played in his career,
and he's getting the snot beat out of him.
And he is just getting drilled. Their defense is god awful, and that's what's been fucking them. And people are going to point to their kicker not making kicks, but look, you can't put that loss on their offense. That loss is on their defense. Justin Herbert, especially in the first half, showed why I think he's really one of the top young quarterbacks because he's really good, and especially like when he's running, he's really hard to stop. Because he's more athletic than people give him credit for. And, I mean, he ripped off multiple...
He showed that yesterday, man. Right. He showed some speed on top of everything else.
Yeah, I mean, and so I don't know. I thought that was cool. You know what, another game, too, and this is the last one, then I'll stop. Denver and Atlanta was interesting because Denver blew Atlanta out.
Okay.
Right, and the reason why that's important, now I think there's some caveat to that, right?
Is Kirk Cousins hurt?
No, he's not hurt. He just didn't play well.
Oh, wow.
And Denver's defense is really good. Bo Nix played really well. And Atlanta's offense has been suspect, Atlanta's defense has been suspect all year, and they just got exposed. And Bo Nix is actually rounding in to be, like, I didn't think he was going to be bad. I just wondered how his game would translate in the NFL. But then when he went to Denver, I was like, oh, fuck, he's going to go to Sean Payton. And Sean Payton's probably going to turn him in. And I wasn't rooting against Bo Nix. I actually am rooting against Sean Payton because I think he's a dick.
All right.
I've always, like...
No, I don't remember when this...
Sean Payton has always come across to me as kind of like just... he's always come across as a Bill Parcells wannabe. And I think he just kind of takes that whole that's who Bill Parcells is, right? Like just a, Jersey dick guy. He's an asshole. Sean Payton, I think that's kind of a persona that he's grown into, and it's manufactured, and it doesn't feel sincere. And I think he's like Bill Parcells wouldn't back down from anybody, right? Like any player, right? Like Keyshawn Johnson get in his face, Bill Parcells tell him to fuck off and, go take his pads off and go in the locker room, right? I saw Sean Payton shout down Russell Wilson like he was a child that he was beating, right? But then Bo Nix this year was yelling at Sean Payton, and Sean Payton was like, oh, I don't understand why you're yelling at me. Jeez, oh man, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. I think the guy is a fraud in terms of his persona. He's a good coach, and he's one of those guys that I'll acknowledge as a good coach. I just don't want to see him win. But I think him and Bo Nix is a good combination that ends up actually probably being successful, unfortunately.
So to sum it up, the only thing worse than being an asshole is being a disingenuous asshole.
Yeah. I mean, at least be genuine about it, and that's where I think with Sean Payton, I don't think he is. I don't think he is a genuine. I think it's manufactured, and guys like that, I just hate to see win. And he's doing it.
How many times have I said I hate seeing Tom Brady win? You don't think he's good? Did I say he wasn't good? That would be a stupid thing to say. Well, but I hate him because he stomped on my team for 2 fucking decades. Well, it's different. It's a different reason.
Way different.
It is, but the point is that you don't have to say someone sucks just because you don't like them, but it's easy to dislike someone who's good at something. All right, are we done?
Yep.
We are at Whiskey Congress on Instagram and X. Thanks for listening. We're out.